All right. We're back. Long time no see, internet. We just did a show on Friday, but there was another U.S. game, and I made the mistake of thinking, hey, this will be not that bad of a show today. We'll do the U.S. review, we'll do some expansion lists, and then all the trades happened today, so this is going to be a great show. I'm still Courtney, and I have with me again Danielle and Jen. So wave, everyone. Thank you. Um, like I said, this is a big lot going on today. We're gonna talk about the U.S. game against Brazil. Lots of great things that happened there, significantly better than the last game. And then we're gonna delve into all of this U.S. stuff, not U.S. stuff, NWSL stuff. My brain still hurts from all the NWSL stuff, so we're gonna
It's been
go.
a long day.
It's been a long day. Um, so we're just gonna get right into it because we have a lot to talk about, and I don't want to waste time with formality since you just saw all of us on Friday. So we're gonna go right into it. We're gonna go right into the national team game against Brazil. I think I'll mix it up. I think I went to Jen first with expectations last time. We'll go to Danielle this time. Were your expectations met? What were your thoughts? What were your expectations going into the game, and did the team meet them?
My expectations were kind of pretty much the same, hoping for some experimentation in the lineup, but knowing Brazil was going to play us tough. And I think we definitely got that. I was so excited to see Sonnet start. But we had 3 first caps in that game. That was crazy. So, yeah, I mean, it was a hard-fought game. It was close. It was emotional. But, yeah, my expectations were pretty much met.
Yeah, I was not. I would probably agree with that. Well, there's one expectation that was not met, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
wait. I'm gonna wait on that, and I'm not gonna rant about it a lot because I ranted the other day, and I said it's other people get to rant today, but I will probably mention it at some point. But we'll move on. Jen, were you happy with the lineup and subs? Are there any players that stood out or disappointed you? Thoughts on the lineup?
I think we all have the same thoughts on the lineup, which I'll defer to your rant section later on that. We all wanted to see Ashlyn. That's just kind of, all of us wanted to see Ashlyn. I think it was kind of her hometown, and she didn't play at all, so that kind of sucked. But like I said, I'll defer to you later for that. Otherwise, yeah, I was really happy to see a lot of the new players up there. I still didn't get to see Christine Nairn. It's coming. I feel it's coming. But, to see Lindsay Horan out there, and Steph McCaffrey was killing it when she went out there. Just watching everybody we saw Lewandowski for the first time out there too. She was phenomenal. So I think all of the new blood is really making themselves known. Players that stood out to me, definitely McCaffrey. I thought McCaffrey had a huge game, so good for her on that one. I was actually a little bit disappointed, I think, by Lindsay Horan, and I don't think that was her fault. I think it was just Brazil's speed up against Lindsay Horan. She's a very powerful player. She's tactically very good, but she's not very quick. So I think that showed a little bit in this game. But otherwise, I mean, it was pretty solid. We won 3-1, so there can't be too many complaints.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I probably have more I could say about the Harris business. I just disappointing. I think it's one thing if you're going with a continuous lineup and you want to keep the same players in. Okay, fine, I get playing solo whole 90 minutes in a friendly, but if you're in a time where you're giving all the people caps and all the new people showing up and you're willing to experiment with your lineup that much, the fact that you can't give your backup goalkeeper even 45 minutes in her hometown essentially is annoying to me. So Alice, I really enjoyed your lineup changes for the most part, but not cool. Not cool that she didn't even get to play at all. But that's all I'm going to rant about it because I'm going to let people rant today. That was all I have to say about it. But I agree with what a lot was said. I think, it was great. Sonnet, I think, I'm going to shout out Hal Kaiser over here from Keeper Notes, but I think he tweeted something about even though Sonnet kind of got burned on that goal, that it's still a good experience for her because I think he said something that it was like the first time and probably the only time that she's had the experience of kind of getting burned that badly, perhaps. So, as much as it's it wasn't great to give up a goal and stuff like that, but like it was a great learning experience for her. And I think the fact that they're playing all these new young talent like against a team like Brazil, I think is great because like yes, they're going to make mistakes. Yes, they're going to have things go wrong, but it's better to have them have that experience against one of the better teams because they'll learn from it and be like, oh, that happened and cool story. I'm going to like do better next time. I agree, Jen, with what you said about Haran. I think like she's great, and I'm glad she's getting a shot. But I think against Brazil, it just made her look really slow, and I don't know that that's her really like being slow or not being slow, but like not being as quick as other players. But I think at one point she just had like the whole right side of the field open, and we're just like go go go, but like Brazil just caught right up to her, and I was like, all right, just kidding. So I do agree there that I think there's certain teams that she will do really well against. Her like run up and header. She probably needs to do a little bit better on the header to get it, in the goal. But thankfully, Dunn had the rebound. But I think overall, great. McCaffrey got a goal. That's awesome. Yay. Good times. First half, Jen, any things that stood out to you in the first half specifically that you wanted to highlight?
A couple of things. It was nice to see Alex Morgan score again. Especially so early. I think her goal was in like the 9th minute or something, which was nice. It was also nice to see Tobin get an assist from the flank play over there. That's why I like her as a flank player. She might not be the best at scoring goals, but she knows where to put it, and that was just a beautifully placed ball. I thought Dunn once again made a lot of chances. We saw her kind of shifting up and toward the center a little bit, which was nice. Because that's where she's comfortable, so that's where she's gonna make chances, which we saw in stoppage time when she scored that goal off of the assist by Lindsay Horan. And then Brune with that save.
Oh my gosh!
Like that's you can't even really talk about that. Like that's not something you can put into words. She just like materialized right there. I don't even know how she got there, but that was a brilliant save. So. For me, it was definitely Brune's defending, and then up top, the players we had up top, and in the midfield on the flanks, moving the ball forward. I am going to probably get a lot of hate thrown my way for this, but I was actually disappointed with Hope Solo in the first half. She wasn't. Brazil had a lot of chances, and she was making a lot of the moves that she would have made when she first started as a goalkeeper. Normally, if she sees a ball is going out, she's not going anywhere near that thing. She's not moving. She's just standing, staring at the birds in the middle of the post because she knows it's going out. And I saw her making some dives that I was actually surprised with. So I feel like she just wasn't reading well in the first half. Thankfully, she changed a little bit for the second half, but that was my first half experience.
All right. I would probably agree with a lot of that, just in general. And I think, whether you get a Hope Solo fan hate or not, like, I think she's great, but I think people have to actually realize that she's also human and is still probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world, but, like, is not, like, she makes mistakes, too, and sometimes makes questionable decisions, and, like, it happens. I wish people would be more realistic in that. Sometimes things happen, but... Anyways, before I get us all in trouble, like DJ did with the One Direction fans, I'm gonna pause for a moment. Danielle, what were your thoughts in the second half? If there's anything that stood out to you and such, like some of your thoughts.
Well, I think what stood out to me, and I'm gonna just kind of echo what Jen said earlier, was McCaffrey. I hadn't had a lot of chances to watch Boston games last season. So I haven't really watched her play, so I didn't know what to expect. But man, she was great. I would have said that even before her goal, and then just that goal put the icing on the cake for me. I thought she was very confident. It didn't feel like her first cap to me. So that really stood out in the second half. Also, what stood out was Ellis's decision to keep Sonnet in. I loved that. to what you guys were saying, to give her that experience, not just to pull her out and be like, okay, you tried, we're going to put JJ in, but nope, you're going to finish, and you're going to get very valuable experience, and it's going to be great. So that stood out, and then I cried for other because Janie got pulled out. So that's all I remember is sadness.
Yeah, I was really, this is, I guess, moving into kind of the next section of just overall thoughts. I was surprised that Klepny got pulled so early. Like, I'm glad that Holiday got to be in there for as long as she did, but I was just like, whoa, 20 minutes, like, that's even less than, like, box played or something like that. I was very surprised. And all kind of emotional, even before, like, I watched the pregame, which I don't usually do, and I just was like, oh, I'm already sad. And so that was the thing that happened. But yeah, I didn't say this, and I see that we have some viewers actually watching, so I'm going to say this. If you want to, normally I say it, and I'm like, oh, there was zero viewers, so I'm saying this to nobody. But if you want to, like, you know, join in our conversation and, like, tell us what your thoughts are, hashtag WoSoTalk. I'll be looking at the Twitter. I know people comment on Facebook. Jen's kind of looking at that also. Just to let you know, we're going to finish talking about U.S., but we're going to actually talk about the protected and unprotected lists at some point. I know the three of us are probably going to be focusing mostly on Kansas City, the Spirit, and the Flash, because those are the teams that we follow the most. But for those of you who are watching, if you're not a fan of those teams, or even if you are, please let us know what your thoughts are. But if you're not a fan of those teams, and maybe, you know, we're going to try to generally cover the other teams, but if you have anything specifically you want to say about, you know, your favorite team and, you know, the protected list and unprotected list that they gave out today, please, you know, hashtag WoSoTalk, and we'll talk about it on the air, because, you know, we can't necessarily focus in detail on all the teams. So if anyone else wants to add in anything, please, you know, hit up that hashtag, and we'll definitely talk about your comments on the air. But that's just to get people ready for what's upcoming. Jen, any final thoughts on the game overall?
Not really. I think we kind of covered everything already. The only other note I was going to add was the surprise about Choops getting pulled out as early as she was. Again, like with the case with Boxy, I don't know what was going on that they both got pulled in the first half. But, you know, I guess it had to end at some point, so why not rip the Band-Aid off?
That's funny. And then Danielle, any final thoughts?
I kind of felt like I was watching Sermani out there this last couple games. I mean, you get a cap and you get a cap. It was kind of nice. What was it? 3 caps. New players got capped in the first year of Jill Ellis's being coach, and then all of a sudden 4 in less than a week. So I was excited. I thought we played better, and getting 3 people, experience was great. So I was happy.
Awesome. We're going to talk about, we're obviously going to have shows for the next upcoming matches in December, because it's not in November. But are there any, we'll start with Jen first, are there any players who you would want to see called in that haven't been called in for these next upcoming camps?
That I can think of off the top of my head, maybe Jen Wiskowski. She might be one that I'd like to see. Maybe. I don't know. I'm really torn on her at the moment. For me, I've followed a lot of the goalkeepers this year, and none of them are going to get called up until Hope retires. So that's a tough call for me to make, because I'd love to see Brittany Cameron get in there. She had a phenomenal season. So, throwing her name around. There were a couple other ones. Obviously, we can talk about Michelle Betos. We can talk about, a bunch of the keepers, but their time is coming. So in the meantime, I think I'm pretty good with where we're at right now.
Okay, Danielle, same question, and then we'll have one more question about U.S. national team stuff, but we'll go about call-ups for future before we get to that.
I'm trying to think of it and not be biased, so that's hard.
Good luck.
Yeah. So I'm trying not to go with my obvious, Timmy needs to be called up, but I think maybe a January camp would be great. I guess I'll agree with goalkeepers. I know, just like Jen said, we won't call in anyone until Hope retires, but I really liked what we did a few seasons back where we had those 7 keepers get called into camp. I think we can't just rely on, Hope retires, then we have Ashlyn, then we have Nair. I think we need some really young people getting these call-ups, I guess Brittany Cameron's not young, but I think she deserves a look. Beto's, Abby Smith out of Texas, Jane Campbell, just get them experience, get them camp, work with the goalkeeper coach. So, yeah, I guess I'll agree with goalkeepers.
Great. One last thing before we move on to the NWSL goodies. Well, before we get to that, Jen Hayes says, I'd love to see Gilliland, Oyster, and Colaprico called up in December. Mm-hmm. Those are all very good choices. Mm-hmm. Shout out, Jen. One last thing, we saw, just going back a little bit, we saw Pino come in as a sub, and I don't know if anyone else saw it this way, but as soon as I saw her coming in, I was like, oh, God, no, because she was just so horrible that first game. But again, Jen Hayes wants to know, do we think that Pino would be better as an impact sub going forward, as opposed to necessarily starting? Danielle, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I think she could be a really great super sub. It just depends because she's such an emotional player. So would the impact sub hurt? She gets too emotional, get upset. So it's hard to say, but I mean, having Pino come off the bench is such an advantage for us. I think that could definitely work.
Awesome. Jen, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's potential there for that. Aside from her being a very emotional player, she's also, and we talked about this the last show, she's also very inconsistent. When she's on, she's absolutely on. She can get a ball into the box from, God only knows what angle. But when she's off, she's all over the place. So I think the potential is definitely there. I don't know necessarily. I mean, she's had a lot of time with the national team, so I don't know that more playing time is the answer for her inconsistency like it might be for some other players. But I definitely think she's made herself a leader of the team in the same way that Abby has, in the same way that Christy Rampone has. She's one of those veteran players that people look to. So I definitely think that her leadership quality on that team is huge. So I could see her as an impact sub.
Awesome. And then we had one final question. Devin Hunt, spelled like Devin on Twitter. Thank you. He wanted to know what our thoughts of Harris not getting any time in her hometown. We mentioned it briefly at the beginning of the show. Devin, I think all of us were pretty disappointed that she didn't get at least a half. I think we all kind of can agree with that. Just to kind of echo what was said earlier, I think that, especially when you're experimenting with the lineup so much and giving all these youngsters, which is great, giving them all a call-up and a chance, which I think needs to happen, especially being in her hometown, she probably should have got some playing time. I think that we all agree with that. Thank you, Devin, for that, because it's definitely a topic that I think I was very mad about. I think all of us were kind of like, what the heck, man, what is this? I mean, we mentioned last show, too, we would have wanted to see her get some time in Orlando, and then she didn't get any, so I think we're all a little bit sad about that. But thanks for your question. So we're going to move on to all of this stuff that happened today, all of the NWSL stuff. So, again, viewers, hop on in, let us know what your thoughts for everything are. Trades, expansion lists. The first trade we're going to probably not, we're trying to give some feedback on some of the trades or just our thoughts. I think the first one, I'm just going to go over it again because we knew it was coming. We knew that Alex Morgan one too, but we'll probably go into that a little bit more. But the first one we kind of knew some of the details that Kling was going to Seattle in return. No, we didn't know, I guess, all the details, so it was a good place to start. So Megan Klingenberg went to Seattle. Along with a conditional pick in the 2017 draft. In return, Seattle gives rights to Amber Brooke and their first round, which is 5th overall draft pick, to Houston. As we kind of have heard, that the expectation is that Klingenberg is going to be left unprotected. Like, she was left unprotected, with the thought that Orlando will take her, therefore protecting the rest of Laura Harvey's Reign team. Either one of you have any thoughts on that? I think we kind of knew that was coming, but just if there was anything else to say on that.
Well, I think it, definitely just cleared up why Harvey was in there and kind of going around with my rant from last time. Why do we let her get into these things? She's always good. I get that Houston had to involve a third team for them to get somebody, but always Laura Harvey. Come on.
I feel like that comes into play when we talk about their protected and unprotected list later on, and just being like, well, I mean, the protected list was very expected in my opinion, but it could have essentially been whatever. I mean, I think Harvey protected the players that she did just in case. But I think we all expect that they're all going to be safe because they're going to take Kling, and then they can't take anyone else if they take Kling according to expansion draft rules. So that's cool. Next trade, I had no idea what was coming, and just we'll kind of just describe the trade. I have my little cheat sheet here because things got confusing today and my head hurt. Portland sends McCall Zerboni and Sinead Farrelly to Boston in exchange for Boston's first round, 2nd overall, and second round, 20th overall picks in the college draft. Cool. And then Boston sent Dagny Brindestadter, tried. Who I think a lot of us were sad when she didn't enter the college draft last year. We were like, no, why? She was the runner-up to the Morgan Bryan for the Herman Trophy last year, much deserved. She was outstanding. So Boston sends her to Portland, and then Portland just takes that draft pick that they took from Boston and gives it right back to them for Brindestadter. So that was kind of interesting. So Jen, what are your thoughts on all that?
Mark Parsons and his brilliant mind. Yeah, Brindestadter's phenomenal. She's just absolutely ridiculous. And I think Parsons is maybe looking at just judging by who he left unprotected. I feel like maybe he's trying to amp up his midfield, and throwing Brindestadter in there is, hello. I think he's also recognizing now that Portland may kind of have the same thing we had for a little bit on the Spirit there, where the players are great, their individual talent is phenomenal, but they're getting up there in age. I'm putting that as politely as possible because I know I'm going to get crap from all of them if I don't. So they are getting a little bit older. So I think he's looking at, with trading for draft picks, he's looking at bringing in younger players. And Brindestadter, straight out of FSU, she's definitely younger blood. And I think he's kind of gearing his team more in that path of, hey, let's bring in these young players. Let's bring in this crazy talent. Let's amp up what we have already. Because, Brindestadter, the way she plays, I think she's just going to really accentuate already the talent that they have on the team. She's going to complement that team very well. And, from watching her play and from kind of standing next to Mark Parsons for a season and kind of seeing what he does, I think the two of them will complement each other very well. So I definitely think that was a good move for Portland. Boston, I'm going to be honest, I'm not the largest fan of McCall Zerboni. So I have a little bit of bias there. But, I think she could add to Boston. Farrelly was very passionate about playing in Portland. I don't know that she's going to have the same passion playing in Boston. So I definitely think Portland got the way better end of this deal.
Danielle, any thoughts on all that business?
Well, it's just Boston, man. It hurts. I have a good friend who, is obsessed with Boston. I just feel bad for her because to give up the number 2 draft pick. I also don't like McCall, and that's because of my bias for. I have a nickname that I won't say on here, but don't step on people's backs. And then, Sinead loves Portland. In fact, right before we went live, I saw she tweeted that she's laying in bed listening to Taylor Swift. She was so upset. I mean, she loves Portland, so she won't have that. I just don't know, Boston. Why do you do these things? And their owner also needs to stay off Twitter because he gets really defensive, and it's not a good look. I know he went after Henderson today, so I don't know. Why? Why do you do these things?
Well, I mean, the second round draft pick hurts, honestly. The other draft pick and then they got it back doesn't really matter. It does hurt in the sense that the second round, I mean, not the second round pick, the first round pick, 2nd overall, that hurts, I think, in the sense of, like, yes, this college draft is not going to be as strong necessarily as last year's draft, perhaps, in previous drafts, but second pick, there's still a lot of talent out there, and I guess, and from Boston's view, it shows the stock that they put on the players that they got for the trade. I think that they think, well, that doesn't really matter about the draft. We have 2 great players. And I had read from the Boston owner was sometimes I'm glad he does get on Twitter because just in the sense of providing information because he did let us know that Boston did sign Brenda's daughter, but they couldn't agree to terms with her. Where she was actually going to want to play in Boston. So I think that they did what the best thing they could do was to try to get something for her. They kind of just traded a draft pick around for that, but it's fine. They still, they still ended up making a trade, and they still have their draft pick, which I don't know, 20th overall. I don't really know how helpful that'll be for them, but and that just shows the value they put on the players they got from Portland. So we'll see how that works out. I think they could do with a little bit more, I guess, maybe not experience because they do have some experienced players on Boston, but just players who have experience, I guess, in different roles, I think, than they had. So, that'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Next we have, just to kind of touch on, I think we all knew this was happening, Alex Morgan well, there is one point that I'll make on this. Alex Morgan and Kaylin Kyle from Portland exchanged for Orlando's first pick in the expansion draft, which I didn't know you could trade expansion draft picks, so I guess that was interesting to find out, but I'll talk more about that in a second. They got their first pick overall in the college draft and an international slot for 2016 and 2017 seasons. We talked about this last week, so I don't want to beat it too much because we think that Orlando's crazy, but it's Alex Morgan, so whatever. But just to clarify, I've seen this question a lot on social media, but we will clarify when they say that they trade their first expansion pick. Orlando is still going to technically pick. I'm sure Portland will influence that pick. We all think it's going to be Megan Klingenberg anyways, but Portland will technically still pick. Orlando will technically still pick and then trade that pick to Portland, or send that pick to Portland, which is what my understanding of it. Thanks everyone on social media who has cleared that up because I was like, what? Does Portland pick? I'm confused. But we said that's going to be Megan Klingenberg anyways, potentially, probably, because that was a name floating around as going to Portland to begin with. And, trading Alex Morgan, I expect to get somebody else back, so I expect that they'll take Klingenberg. But, yeah, anything else to add about that shenanigan, that trade?
I think everyone in Orlando should get the Morganosaurus braid right down the middle of their head. That's my philosophy on that.
You're terrible. All right, moving right along. We're going to go to Danielle first on this one because I'm sure she'll have a lot of things to say. Orlando Pride and FC Kansas City. FC Kansas City sends Sarah Hagan and their second-round pick, 15th overall, in the 2016 college draft to Orlando in exchange for Orlando's second-round pick in the 2017 college draft. Danielle, your thoughts?
Well, we were blindsided. I was on Twitter talking to friends, and all of a sudden I get a message, why is Apple in Orlando? So none of us knew, and usually we kind of know what's going on, wink, wink, nothing's happening. Mm-hmm. So that was a surprise. So I know a lot of people are upset at first, but I think it was a really good trade. It sucks losing somebody for just draft picks, but I think that, one, getting that draft pick for next college draft is going to be huge. And two, Apple wasn't happy in Kansas City. Anyone who could watch her play could tell. She came from, playing overseas and being so successful to coming to Kansas City and sitting on the bench. I think her on-field performance a lot this season showed it. There were so many games where it's like, you can get that ball. You can run. Just run for it. And she didn't. So I think it was the best move for her. Plus, this isn't any insider. This is just from what I've seen on Twitter. There's a lot of talk about backroom deals and politics. So if any of those are true, I think it's definitely worth it. The one that came out was like protecting Heo, but I think she would have been protected. If it protects us against anyone else getting drafted in the expansion, it's definitely worth it. But yeah, I think it was a good draft. It was a good trade. I think it was.
Jen, do you have any thoughts on that decision, that trade?
No, kind of to echo what Danielle said. Anybody that watched her play knew she wasn't overly thrilled to be in Kansas City. So I'm hoping that, because I loved her previously, so I'm really hoping that the move to Orlando will kind of reignite her passion for the sport and kind of reignite what she had that maybe she lost a little bit in Kansas City. So I'm looking forward to see her playing for a new team.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you mentioned it to me when I said something on Twitter, Danielle, but then I think other people had kind of been posting about it, that there was some sort of, there's going to be lots of gentlemen agreements in this new league and not the new league, but with this new team and expansion and all that. We'll leave Klingenberg unprotected, take her, and like leave my roster unharmed, and like, oh, take Hagen and our second round draft pick, but like please don't touch anyone else on our team, kind of like, or at least don't protect, at least don't take Heyo. I don't know if that's going to apply. Like you said, it might, maybe don't take anyone else. We'll see what happens. Monday is the expansion draft, by the way, so a week from today. So we'll see what happens and all that, but it's very interesting. For those of you who might be just joining us, we're getting right into, we just talked about the trades that happened in the NWSL today. We're going to be hitting up the expansion protected and unprotected lists now. Like I said earlier, we're going to be focusing just on the teams that we kind of mostly follow, so the Flash, the Spirit, and Kansas City. And then we'll kind of have more of a general discussion on the other people's lists. But if you have anything you want to say about either the three lists that we're going to talk about in detail, or any of the other lists that we might not mention in quite as much coverage as the ones we're going to talk about, let us know. Talk to us on Twitter. It's #WosoTalk. Let us know what your thoughts are about any of this. We'll read your comments on air. If you have any questions, we'll all answer your questions. So before we get right into that, this list, I just wanted to throw that out there. So #WosoTalk. We're not going to read who's protected and unprotected on the list, because that could just take forever, and there's probably, I'll butcher everyone's name. But I know you can find that on our Off the Post website. You can find that on the NWSL website. The list of players that are protected and unprotected. So if you're listening and you're not sure who those players are yet, you can head over to one of those two places and read who, just so you know who we're talking about if you're not, familiar yet. It was a lot of stuff going on today. But we'll start with the Spirit first. So I'm going to kick it over to Jen, that Spirit fan, to talk to us a little bit about her thoughts on the players that the Spirit have chosen to protect and not protect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think everybody is kind of talking about who the Spirit has chosen to protect and not protect at this point.
Yep.
So, yeah, no pressure. No, I mean, we all saw Harris coming, and a couple of us saw Krieger coming as well, both being unprotected. Yeah, the thing is, I think they both want to go to Orlando. Ashlyn Harris definitely wants to go to Orlando. Ellie Krieger is likely to follow, and I think what's going to happen is they're going to use that second expansion draft pick to select one of them, whichever one they don't select. I can see Sermania and Guevara doing a whole lot of trading and a whole lot of political movement there to get the other one down to Orlando. So, that's painful for me, being a Spirit fan, watching both of our, I guess, I don't want to say star players, because we have a lot of star players on our team, but they're pretty crucial to the Spirit as far as our defense is concerned. And to watch both of them probably leaving for Orlando, that's really painful as a Spirit fan. Kelsey Weiss, also on that unprotected list. Not surprised about that one. I mentioned last show that she also wanted to go there. She's an FSU alum. I think Guevara just kind of ran down and said, anybody that doesn't want to be here, I'm going to leave unprotected just to see what happens. We all kind of know what's coming, but just to see what happens. I think he left those players unprotected. For me, it was nice to see a lot of our back line that was so solid this past season get protected. Catherine Reynolds was protected. Tori Huster was protected. Megan Oyster, the big one for me, was also protected. He did protect Nairn and Matheson, which was also huge for me. And I think the biggest note to make as far as who the protected players are is that he kept the combination of Crystal Dunn and Franny Ordega. He did protect Ordega as well, so no matter what, we'll have the two of them up top, the two of them combining their speed. I think they're only going to get better. As far as unprotected players go, I wasn't too shocked to see both of our Mexican players on the list of unprotected players. Haley Rosso, unfortunately, it breaks my heart to see her unprotected, but I'm hoping, with taking, more than likely taking both Ashlyn and Allie, he won't touch Haley Rosso. And my personal favorite, Joanna Lohman, also on that list of unprotected players. Thankfully, I don't think she's going anywhere either. So those are kind of my notes on the Spirit. Most of our international players actually were on the unprotected list, but I think that's kind of along the same lines of what happened with Laura Harvey, saying, here, you can have Klingenberg, don't touch anybody else. I think the Spirit kind of did the same thing with, hey, you're going to get either Ashlyn or Allie, and then probably trade a bunch of crap to get the other one, so leave everybody else alone. And I think that's kind of what we're dealing with in Washington.
I mean, that's the good thing about, I guess, the expansion rules is that if you take an allocated player, that's your one player, Orlando. Like, you can't take another player from that team. So, we do expect them to take either Allie or Ashlyn. So, I mean, everyone else is kind of, cool there. Danielle, do you have any thoughts on the Spirits list? Just going to jump in just to, check in. Mm-hmm.
I froze. Were you waiting for me, or?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I was just going. I know we're going to have each person mainly talk about one list, like their team's list, but I just wanted to know if you had any additional comments on the Spirits list.
No, I mean, just to echo what both of you guys said, it's going to be Ashlyn or Allie, so, just put on names. But I really like the point of going down who wants to be here, who doesn't. Cabrera didn't do great for Sky Blue these last couple seasons, but he's a smart man, so I really like that he kind of did what we assumed he did. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I think as far as like fan favorites, like having the both of them gone is going to be kind of troublesome for the Spirit. But I mean, as far as the backline goes, Krieger was gone. I love Krieger, but she was gone most of the season and then played midfield when she was back. So like the backline probably is going to be okay, even with the players they have, and who knows what they may get, on the other side of that. So, but I think the fact that they were left both unprotected, it makes it pretty obvious that they're both going to end up going at some point, just because why not protect one of them if you didn't, why not protect one of them unless you knew you were going to get something for the other one either way? Because my whole thing I've been saying this whole time, protect Ashlyn, make them trade for her, but the fact that they left them both unprotected pretty much says a lot in, Gabar probably knowing he's going to get something for the other one regardless. So moving on. Hey, FC Kansas City. Danielle, talk to us about FC Kansas City's list.
Well, FCKC's list kind of just reemphasized to me that I think all of this was predetermined and people know what's going to happen. Surprised on the protected, I was surprised to see Averbush and Moros over Lepelbit, but I think there has to be a reason for that. There has to be, because Lepelbit's so good. So that was the one surprise on the protected. I seem to be the only person who's excited that Roland was on the protected list. A lot of people are like, why? In FCKC's first 3 seasons, we've had 3 different backup keepers. So I like the idea of being able to develop a young keeper. Barney does not have that much longer in her. She didn't start every game. She's injury prone. We like to joke, and I mean this because I love her a lot. She's falling apart. She's always has ice on her, and we love her for it. So the idea of being able to develop a young keeper excites me. And just from what I've seen, Roland and Barney work really well together. They love each other, so I like that. I seem to be the only one. I was glad to see Timmy on the protected list because I think everyone thought she was going to Orlando, and she didn't have the best season last year, but I think we could build a club around her still. And then Laddish, I was worried about her because she had such a phenomenal season last season, so that's great. Surprise on the unprotected. I can't really comment on some because I might know stuff I shouldn't, but I was more surprised by, oh my gosh, I can't believe, this person's on the list. I thought she was already gone. Keane retired. Let's see. So it's Keane who surprised me. I don't think anyone expected Jenna Richmonds to come back. Nikki Phillips has been kind of iffy. Gory, I don't think anyone expected her back. So that's were most of my surprises. The one person I'm really worried about is Francis Silva. I'm a big fan. I know Francis is hungry for playing time. Francis wants it so bad, and hopefully she can get it next season, but I'm not sure if Orlando's the right move for her. I think that, especially with all of her family in Kansas City, I think that's the best place for her. And I'm really biased because I love Frances. So that was my one surprise on the unprotected list was Fran.
I'm not gonna lie. I honestly thought that like I forgot that some of those players played for Kansas City. Like I knew Nikki Phillips I think had a baby, so
Yep.
okay. But like Katrina Gorey, I'm writing an abroad series because she didn't come back and play after the World Cup. Like so, I'm writing an abroad series, and I have not mentioned Katrina Gorey once as like a player, a WSL player, like
We
abroad.
have her rights. We kept her rights, basically.
Okay, that makes sense because I literally was like, wait, what? She still plays on that team? What's going on there? Jen, any brief thoughts on Kansas City?
I think Danielle covered it well. The one for me that I was maybe surprised to see, maybe not surprised to see, because again, I agree with Danielle that there's got to be a reason for it, was Amy LaPelbit. She was phenomenal. You know, next to Brune, I would have put her as Defender of the Year, probably. So the fact that she was on the unprotected list, there's got to be something going on there. So that's all I can say about that one. No one else was really overly shocking to me, I don't think.
All right, I'm going to talk about the Flash real quick, and then by quick I mean real quick because I really only have a few concerns about this list. The Flash make me angry sometimes. Not angry, make me sad sometimes because there's so much potential and then all the things happen. And I really, really thought Becky Edwards was going to be left unprotected just because she's like one of those Florida girls also, and I was just like, oh dear God, please don't do it. But happily, she's protected, so yay. I mean, my only concern is that both goalkeepers are on the unprotected list, and, you know, this is not anything, like, official from either player or club, but, you know, I had some people, some Flash fans were talking, you know, on social media today about how they talk to some of the players at the end of it, and, like, you know, sometimes players don't, you know, we don't know what's going on with players in the off season, we don't know, and this is for any position, too, I say this about any of the other players, you know, Jasmine Spencer's on there too, which is, you know, sad for me as Chris and Edmonds, but you never know what's going to happen with players, like, you know, if they're going to come back or not. Like I said, this is not anything like that I know for sure, but it just makes me nervous when both goalkeepers are on there because what if they take one and, like, the other one doesn't come back? Like, what if they took, I don't know if they would take, what if they took Jones and, like, something happened with Sabrina and, like, she didn't come, or, like, Sabrina went into, like, Canada camp or something like that and then, like, didn't have a goalkeeper. Same thing in reverse. What happens if they take Sabrina D'Angelo and, like, something, you know, Jones goes somewhere else or, like, doesn't, I don't, you know, like, what happens? You put both your goalkeepers out there. So that makes me nervous just because, like, that's a possibility. Like, if they take one and something happens to the other, like, we're Flasher, once again, for, like, the third season, having no goalkeepers in the off-season. So that makes me nervous. And that's the only really thing. And Jasmine Spencer makes me sad because I love her, and I think that she's really great for the Flash. And Michelle Heyman also is on unprotected, but I do understand that, and I very much expect Sermani to take her. Obviously, he coached the Matildas while she was on the team, and so they have that connection, and I could see him wanting to take her. Other than that, you know, the Flash are able to protect both their allocations because they only have to. You know, I'm protecting Hinkle, Williams, Mewis, Dahlkemper, Edwards, Taylor, like, great life choices. They chose to protect Lady Andrade, who, you know, wasn't super impressive, but I think that's just with the style. Like, if Heyman goes, I think her and Heyman didn't necessarily play well together, their styles, but if Heyman goes, then I think Andrade could definitely mesh better with, like, Lynn Williams and things like that. So I have very little complaints. Amanda Frisbee's on that list, and I don't know if I, like, hope Orlando would take her and then maybe she'd get more playing time in Orlando. I don't know if that's a hope that I have, or hopefully she'll get more playing time with the Flash this year, but I think she's someone who, like, really, again, was able to show some of her potential, had some injuries again. But other than that, I have very little to say except that I'm actually not as mad at this list as I thought I would be, so thank you for not making me a sad panda. Anyone have any thoughts on the Flash list that they want to talk about real quick before we move on to general folks?
Well, I think the goalkeeper thing was a good point, especially after you guys almost got burned last season with goalkeeper when D'Angelo was injured and then Jones got the suspension. So, I don't know. Interesting.
Yep, that's the concern, and that's even a better concern. What if they do? Even if one of them does come back, like assuming that's a thing, that they take one, the other one comes back. Great, we have a goalkeeper, but then like who else comes? Like they were both out last year, and we had to pull like another person that no one had even, very few people had heard of, and she did great, but it was just like who's the goalkeeper for the Flash right now? So
you guys have the worst luck with goalkeepers.
literally. So that's what makes me nervous also, because the Flash's history with goalkeepers is not stellar, and so I was just like, oh my god. Great. So I guess just kind of to move on, does anyone, if people had a chance to look over the other teams' list, was there anything in general on anyone's protected or unprotected list that surprised or concerns either one of you? Jen?
No. I mean, I noticed the dash left McLeod unprotected.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was very expected. Like that was absolutely expected after the news of Alan Masser. So that one kind of stood out to me. I was a little disappointed that they left Jen LaPont unprotected. Like I get it, she didn't really have a whole lot of playing time, so she didn't really have a great season. But she's one of my favorites. I think she just has so much potential. So I hope she gets to stay there, and I hope they choose to develop her a little bit more. Seattle, we've already talked about. They're pretty much solid. I don't think they're going to have anything funky going on. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much nothing really shocking anywhere. Portland, one quick note on Portland. Shim, I think for me was a little bit shocking, just because she played so well in the absence of the World Cup players that I think I was a little bit surprised to see her get unprotected. But again, I think Parsons is I think he has an idea of what he wants on that team, and I'm not sure Mana Shim fits that bill. But she's a player that I enjoyed watching while everybody was out on the World Cup, so I certainly hope that she gets her due as well. And Leanne Sanderson, everybody knows my thoughts on Leanne Sanderson, so we're just going to bypass that note.
That's fair. Danielle, any thoughts on general overall team lists?
I guess mine just kind of echo. McLeod made sense, and it just confirmed what a lot of us figured. Let's see, Portland. I agree with the Mana Shim. I did read that she isn't going anywhere, even if she's on the unprotected. She's such a fan favorite, and I know that Paul Riley almost was murdered when he let her go away during the Houston draft, so that surprised me. I was a little surprised with Chicago having Dalton unprotected, especially with KK retiring. Obviously, Dalton, the last memory of the season wasn't great in the semifinal, but she was so solid for Chicago during the World Cup. And in fact, I think she should have started post-World Cup every game. So I was a little surprised to see her unprotected. And let me see, I think I had one more. And then I heard some Boston fans that were sad that Maddie Evans was unprotected as well. So those, which I don't know, but I know I heard a lot of people talk about that.
I do have one about Chicago. Taryn Hemmings also super surprised for me about her being unprotected, just because I don't know if that was just like, oh, we had to choose, and like I don't know who you. My thing is, I guess I don't know who you unprotect. I guess because they were so limited, they have one less allocation because they were in the playoffs. So not one less allocation, they have one less protected spot. They can only pick 9. So I guess I know if you ask me who to switch her with, I don't know that I have an answer, but I'm just hoping that she stays she stays in Chicago, just because has been so great for them. But like I said, they if you're in you made the playoffs last year, you only have 9 protected spots as opposed to 10, so you had to cut someone. And I look at that list and I'm like, well, I don't really know who I would unprotect in her place. So I get it. Just want to clear one thing up for the viewers before we move on to see if anyone has any rants. I've had a lot of this on Facebook today. Unprotected players just means that they're eligible to be taken from a team if they don't get taken by Orlando. If they don't get taken by Orlando, they're still with the team that they are on currently. It doesn't. I know some people I think are confused about, if they don't get taken by Orlando, are they off the team? No. They're still there. They just it's just people who Orlando has the opportunity to choose from, as opposed to protected players who they don't have that chance. So I just want to clear that up, because I've seen a lot on Facebook of what does that mean? Oh my God. So don't worry, people, if your favorite is unprotected and they don't get picked in the expansion draft, they're still okay. They're still on the team. Rants. Anyone? I'm not going to rant this week. I kind of did already today, so I'm going to not. Danielle, have anything to rant about?
I'm pretty happy. My only thing is FCKC fans have been really dramatic today, and it's okay. We're going to be fine. In Vladko we trust. There has to be a reason for everything, so just chill. But other than that, I'm happy. Jill Ellis did good stuff. We're all good.
Outstanding. Jen, anything to rant about?
Do you think FCKC fans have been dramatic?
You win.
Yeah, this is true.
You win.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm pretty happy. I mean, the list is what I expected. I really can't rant about it. We'll be okay too. It happens. Whoever ends up not going for the expansion draft, whoever gets traded around, whatever, we have to get a pretty darn good trade for that. So I'm sure we'll be fine. Gabar's coached in Washington before. He's coached some of these players before. Dude may not have done well with Sky Blue, but he did well in Washington. So hopefully he pulls us out with whatever he's got. So yeah, no, I'm pretty happy. Life's good. Life's great. I have coffee. It's fantastic.
Coffee. We do have one more question before we head out. I just refreshed the page on Diane on Twitter. Thank you, Diane, for following us and all that lovely things. Deekly, if I said that correctly.
Hey, Diane.
Do you think all the goalkeepers went unprotected because there's some behind-the-scenes info that Orlando will take Harris, and maybe thinking that they weren't going to take several top goalkeepers? That's a valid point. What are you guys' thoughts on that, Danielle?
Can you repeat it? It kind of broke up. I'm sorry.
Yep. Diane asked, do you think all the goalkeepers went unprotected because there's some behind-the-scenes info that Orlando definitely will take Harris?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, with Harris, you know that your main, your starter keeper is probably going to be safe. I think that's about right. Hi, Diane.
Jen, do you agree with that? What are your thoughts?
I mean, everybody knows Ashland's going to Orlando one way or another. So that's going to be their starting keeper. But something to keep in mind is that the Olympics are next year. Ashland Harris is going to be gone for the majority. So maybe it wasn't super intelligent for everybody to leave their goalkeepers unprotected, knowing that there's going to be at least one other one going to Orlando one way or another, whether they're drafted in the expansion or the college draft or traded or whatever. So I think maybe the fact that, the Spirit, for example, have both of their goalkeepers up, the Flash have both of their goalkeepers up, I think that may have been a dumb move, just recognizing the fact that Ashland Harris is going to the Olympics. So, it's a tough call on that one for me, because trying to think ahead, personally, I would have protected one of my keepers knowing, hey, there's a shot that we're going to lose one. And then, as Courtney had said earlier, God only knows what could happen during a season. We could have an injury. We could have a player not come back. We could have some strange plague go on that, wipes goalkeepers off the face of the planet. We just don't know. So, it's a weird call for me. I'm not sure that they were unprotected for that reason specifically, knowing that Harris is going to the Olympics.
I think it's hard to, my thought on it, I think it's hard to, when you only have 9 or 10 players to protect, I think it's hard to protect both your goalkeepers. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of them were unprotected because of that reason, but I do also think that that did have an impact, especially, I feel like especially for the Spirit, leave them both unprotected, though, because if they take Harris, they can't take it. They can't take Weiss, so why not? You know what I mean? Why have Weiss take up a spot? The same thing with, the Reign. If you are kind of knowing you're using Megan Klingenberg as a shield to keep your roster safe, leave Kottmeyer unprotected. Why not? I mean, you're probably, granted, if anything fell through with that, they're probably not going to take, they could take Kottmeyer, but, I think it's a little bit of both. I think that the fact that, you only have so many spots to protect, and protecting 2 goalkeepers is tough. But I also think that, obviously if the people know they're going to take Harris, they know that at least one of their they're not going to take both their goalkeepers. So, great question, though. Thanks, Diane, for that. at this point, if there's anything else, not anything else, and whoa, words are, my brain is so fried today. Are there any final thoughts from anyone? This is, we've been trying to keep episodes on the short, but there's just so much stuff going on today. Again, we have to cover all of this because this is what we do. We're off the post and we cover all the things, and so, we can't have the flurry of activity today not mention it because we're going to be getting like all the hate for that. But any final thoughts, Jen?
Nope. I think I'm good. At least until a week from today.
Yeah, we may have to incorporate that into a show on its own at some point. We haven't really planned on it, but we will do something because there's an expansion draft happening and it should be talked about. Danielle, any final thoughts?
Today was exhausting.
Yes. Yup. It sure was. Awesome. Well, thanks, everyone. That was a lot of stuff that we covered in just under an hour, so we appreciate, we had quite a few viewers watching live today, and I definitely appreciate that. We all do. Especially because today was such a flurry, and I know that so many people were interested in this, so thank you all for tuning in. Like I said, keep an eye out, and I don't know that we'll do a show right after or right on the expansion draft day, but I'm sure in an upcoming show we will definitely focus on that at some point. In interim, stay tuned to our social media because we will be posting as we hear news and updates. And if we can't get a show going around the expansion draft, we will certainly post about it right on that time. The expansion draft is happening a week from today at about noon Eastern time. Supposedly, via conference call, it's happening like it did last year. So I'm sure we'll be getting the results. I'm sure they'll either be tweeted out as they happen, or we'll be getting a list at the end. I believe Houston's were actually tweeted out as it happened, so make sure you're following all the appropriate Twitter accounts. And thanks for watching, and we're out. Bye, everybody. Bye. This was Off the Post again. Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you when we see you.